On today's Locked On Texan podcast, what are the keys to beating the Colts this Sunday, and how can Houston's wide receivers step up?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Hump Day episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to all of our new listeners. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan podcast wherever you get your podcasts and listen, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you are one of our returning listeners and viewers, thank you for coming back as we continue to talk Texans every single day. You know what it is. I am your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. Of course, joining me as always is your Texans beat reporter, credential media member, and Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. This episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 and more infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. On today's lineup, we're talking about the defensive keys to victory versus the Colts, the offensive keys to victory versus the Colts. But Cody, kick us off looking at how the Houston Texans wide receivers can step up and how can this team be better on third downs.
Well, it's not really how they can improve on third down. It is, as of right now, the improvements that we have already seen with the Houston Texans in that category. And when you go back to last year, when you look at a team that only converted on third downs 30% of the time, where they was ranked 31st out of 32, that was definitely one of the biggest improvements the Houston Texans needed to do. And when you go back and you take a look at Sunday's game against the Baltimore Ravens, the Houston Texans, despite everything that was going on, they did a pretty good job with their third down efficiency. This is a team that completed 7 out of 18 attempts. And if we being honest, it definitely could have been 9 out of 18. But there was 2 times where the Texans converted on third down and it got called back. And when I went back and I watched Sunday's game, there was 2 things that I noticed. First and foremost, and I think this is the biggest reason why we are starting to see improvements in the Houston Texans third down efficiency, and that's, of course, the play at quarterback. Because the one thing about having CJ Stroud, he is a quarterback, whether he's using his accuracy or his ability to use his legs to extend drives, we definitely have a guy at that position who knows how to be a playmaker, a guy who knows how to create something out of nothing, a guy who is definitely going to make sure he does everything possible to extend those plays. And that's very telling, because when you go back and you take a look at the last 2 seasons, whether it was Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor to a certain extent, Jeff Driscoll, Kyle Allen, whoever was starting under center following the departure of Deshaun Watson, none of those quarterbacks really used their legs. None of those quarterbacks was the so-called accurate quarterback. And that's part of the reason why we saw the Texans kind of struggle with their third down efficiency. But the biggest thing that I've noticed, and this kind of goes hand in hand with me giving Bobby Slowick a little bit more credit than what a lot of people are doing, but that's him literally trusting this wide receiving core. I know going into this season, going into preseason, going into training camp, one of the things that was bugging a lot of people, including myself, was, what is this wide receiving core going to look like? How can this wide receiving core be productive? And when you go back and you take a look at the plays where they was able to convert on third down, it was their wide receivers stepping up. And when you take a look at Robert Woods alone, speaking of somebody who was a little bit kind of, I'm not going to say disrespectful, but I had my concerns throughout training camp and the preseason. Robert Woods definitely came through for that wide receiver core on third down, because as I mentioned, the Texans converted on 7 and he had 4 or 5 along himself. And I like that, because when you go back and you take a look at past years, you know that this is a team that always wanted to establish the run. Literally, the run wasn't working against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. And I like the fact how Bobby Sloyd trusted his rookie quarterback and trusted his wide receiving core for them to go out there and make plays. And that says a lot about some of the small improvements that we are seeing with the Houston Texans so far this season.
When I look at the third down efficiency, right? First and foremost, 4 of the 7 first downs came on the drive that led to their first 3 points. And so you definitely want to see this team convert more. I'm sorry, 4 of the 7 converted third downs to get first downs were on the drive that led to the Texans' first 3 points. When I look at the third down efficiencies, Cody, listeners, viewers, on non-scoring drives, your offense has to be in a better position than the following: 3rd and 13, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 21, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18, and then we get a 3rd and 3, right? And so for Houston, you want to convert, absolutely, but we get hype. We're excited. D'Amico, all of this, the what do we call it? The West Coast best hits, right? The greatest hits of the best West Coast offense. But 3rd and 21, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18, those are consecutive third downs on non-scoring drives where Houston was in terrible positions. Now, that could have been due to the penalties. That could have been due to the lack of offensive execution. No matter what, this team isn't built like a Kansas City Chiefs, I would even go as far as saying like a Chargers, like one of those offensive teams that can put points on the board like Miami. They stick out their kinks they need to work out. And you don't want your rookie quarterback. You don't want this young running back when you look at Damien Pierce. You don't want the youth of this team on both sides of the ball, but offensively, you don't want the youth of this team, even when you look at offensive coordinator Bobby Sloyd, as this is his first year, to always have to be in positions where they have to overcome 3rd and super long. Like this is just 3rd and 8, 21, 16, 16, 18. So that's a problem. When I look at going up against the Colts, they have to cut down those penalties, those mistakes that led to some of those additional yardage that they have to pick up. And then in the earlier downs, we're talking about the third down efficiencies. Take care of what you need to do on down 1 and down 2. That was an issue that I saw several times throughout the game against the Baltimore Ravens from the running backs. And we love Damien Pierce. I love Damien Pierce. I'm a Damien Pierce fan. I also like the signing of Devin Singletary. But there was at least one occasion for Damien Pierce, maybe 2, a couple of occasions for Devin Singletary. I'm watching the film and I'm thinking to myself, the hole is here. So your 2nd and 8, your 2nd and 7 could have very well been a 2nd and 5, a 2nd and 4, but the yardage wasn't picked up because of the wrong hole, right? And, if you're a middle schooler, you're a middle school young man, you've been through that problem, wrong hole, right? So when I look at the running backs, they have to do a better job. And I know the offensive line wasn't the greatest whatsoever, but there was moments where veteran running back Devin Singletary, the expectations and the hype surrounding Damien Pierce, you want to see them just be better in their role, picking up those early down situations and making them easier, picking up a couple of yards here and there. And then you also want to see Damien Pierce just be on the field a whole lot more, right? Damien Pierce was only on the field for 45% of the offensive plays for Houston. I think that's unacceptable. Honestly, right? This isn't last year where they leaned on Rex Burkhead for no apparent reason. You didn't challenge him to be anybody, to bring in anybody else to challenge him to be your number 1 running back. So keep that same energy. Feed him the ball. And I thought he was very successful early in the game at picking up some of those yardages for Houston. So I didn't like them moving away from him later in the game, and that's what you want to see. When I look at the wide receiver stepping up, I thought for what the offense was on Sunday, I thought the wide receivers did a very good job. I was proud of Nico Collins' effort. I was enthused by Robert Woods' effort. But I will say this, Noah Brown played in 67% of the offensive snaps Sunday. Tank Dell, 48. And if you ask me or Cody, or maybe some of those players and people in the building, who do you believe can add a spark to this offense right now? 9 times out of 10, you're going to hear Tank Dell, Tank Dell, Tank Dell. And I'm looking at Noah Brown as a guy that what does Noah Brown give you that either Robert Woods isn't going to give you, or what is he going to give you that justifies taking snaps away from Tank Dell? Early in the season, week 1, I believe the first 4 weeks of this season is an opportunity for Houston to kind of figure some things out. So we'll see. But to this point, I don't think Noah Brown has done anything to justify taking away valuable snaps from Tank Dell. I would either go as far as to say maybe Xavier Hutchinson, but he is a veteran in the NFL. So there's some things that he may have more of an idea to how to execute it. I understand that, but nowhere near taking away snaps from Tank Dell. I was disappointing in that. So for Houston overall, guys, they just got to be in better positions. 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 13. It isn't acceptable, right? And once you get your rookie quarterback in better position to go out there and maybe get the ball out quicker to some of his playmakers on 3rd and 5, so maybe they can make a play and move the chains, then you'll see this offense become much more efficient. Do want to give you guys an update. We played the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. They were 2 of 12 on 3rd down. The Jacksonville Jaguars were 3 of 12 on 3rd downs as well. So I think Houston has an opportunity to force that offense off the field, keep Anthony Richardson off the field, make his day a whole hell of a lot shorter by keeping him off the field and going out there and listen, move the chains, move the ball, put points on the board. They need a touchdown this Sunday.
Before moving on, I do want to touch on the Noah Brown, Tank Dell conversation really quick. I 100% agree with you. Tank Dell will be the instant spark that the Houston Texans need on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm wondering, with the snap counts, with the snap percentages that you just mentioned, John, I'm wondering how much of that is simply due to try to help with the run blocking. Because when you look at that West Coast, the greatest of the West Coast offense, you know, that's one of the intangibles that Bobby Slowick is looking for, wide receivers that can help out with the run blocking. And, you know, not only is Noah Brown a veteran, but he is somebody that has been at times pretty reliable with his blocking, with his run blocking. And I'm pretty sure that was probably more so the thinking. But look, if you're looking for an instant spark, you have to go with Tank Dell. But I this is one of them situations until Titus Howard comes back to give that offensive line a tremendous boost. I think it's going to be very challenging to truly try to get a true evaluation of this Houston Texans offense this early.
Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. If you're looking for a sweet matchup to exploit for a big game at receiver in week 2, turn to the Chargers' Mike Williams. Williams was quiet and banged up in the run-heavy opener against Miami in week 1, but he draws a beautiful spot against a Titans secondary which struggled to handle any of the Saints receivers downfield, including Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Look for Justin Herbert to hit him on at least 1 or 2 big scoring plays down the field to Williams. And so that's a player that you want to definitely keep on your radar. Vinny Iyer from the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fits, listen, is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So why not do it? Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay guarantee fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only and exclusions apply.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans. And it is time for us to start getting prepared for week 2 of the 2023 campaign, with the Texans going up against the Indianapolis Colts. And John, as you mentioned, we got to start looking at keys to victory. We're going to start on the offensive side of the ball. And for me, the biggest key of all is the same thing that it was last week. Can the offensive line overcome their injuries? Because the one thing that you and I have been talking about a lot over these last 2 days, and we even talked about it in the first segment, when you look at the improvements that this team made with their third down efficiencies, the Texans have showcased potential, they have showcased promise, they have showcased improvements, they have showcased development, they have showcased so much with their offense. However, it's like, man, I wonder what they will be able to accomplish if the offensive line can play a lot better. And this is an O-line who gave up a total of 10 quarterback hits and 5 sacks, but CJ Stroud still had the ability to go out there and complete 63.6 of his passes for 242 yards. And right now, John, I understand it. When you take a look at that offensive line, a lot of it has to do with talent. But I think it's really going to come down to what Coach D'Amico Ryans, Bobby Sloyd, and the rest of that staff, how are they going to shake up their offensive line and try to put the players at the right position?
Like with our offensive line, we've been shuffling guys a lot. As you guys know, we've had multiple injuries in the O-line, and we've had to shuffle guys. But in practice, our guys have moved around to multiple spots. Our guys played guard, played tackle. I thought Josh did a good job being his first time at guard. He hasn't been with us long, so being in a tough spot for him, he accepted the challenge and he went out and he played good ball for us. So I'm happy with what Josh was able to do for us on Sunday.
I took it upon myself to try to come up with an offensive line that could be suitable for the Texans, given everything that they have going on as of right now. And this is what my line came out. And John, you let me know if you agree with this. Going from left tackle all the way to right tackle, I got Laramie Tunsil, Michael Dieter, Jared Patterson, Shaq Mason, and Josh Jones. I know a lot of people are down on Josh Jones, but what was one of the biggest things that I kept harping on ever since they traded for him? Yes, I understand that he was brought in following the season-ending injury to Kenyon Green. I understand that and I get it. A lot of people was expecting him to play left guard, and he did on Sunday. However, he did not look good because he is not at his best at guard. He is best when he's playing tackle, and there is a vacancy right now, especially given that as of right now, George Fant probably will not suit up on Sunday. We will know more about his injury situation a little bit later on today. But you have to put Josh Jones at tackle, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a better performance from him. A better performance from him means you're going to get a better version from the offensive line. Better version from the offensive line will definitely means that you're going to get a better version of this Houston Texans offense.
I'm glad you mentioned the keys to victory to beating the Colts is definitely better offensive line play, but I'm going to take it a step further now. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are thinking to yourself, quick with the trick plays, run the dang ball, right? But no, when I look at what helped the Jacksonville Jaguars be successful in beating the Indianapolis Colts, they were airing the ball out. When I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence and what he was able to do, listen, on the outside 10 to plus yards, outside of the numbers down the field, he was successful with a 103 passer rating. So, yeah. Also, deep 20 yards, 20 plus more yards down the field, 2-2 on the outside right of the numbers, a touchdown, a 158 passer rating, 44 yards. I'm looking at this as the perfect opportunity for this to go together. Yeah, protect your quarterback, block. Make sure that you're doing a better job to give him opportunities to attack this offense down the field. For Trevor Lawrence, Again, going back to Sunday's matchup versus the Jags, where they were successful on 20 or more yards down the field, he was 3 or 3 on the day. Between 10 yards and 19 yards down the field, 5 of 9 on the day, 79 yards, but he also tossed a touchdown there as well. I'm looking at this as a perfect opportunity for the Houston Texans to, again, give your quarterback that time, limit that pressure so your wide receivers can go through their routes and your quarterback can attack this Indianapolis defense down the field. That's my key. I think for Houston, no Titus Howard, no Juice Scruggs. Your left guard situation is crazy right now. I think that may end up being an issue throughout the entire season. So how can I say, let's see to run the ball, let's establish the run, when the issues are still going to be there? No, we can wait on that. When you have a quarterback that was accurate in college, showed his accuracy so far in the NFL, dating back to the preseason and even in game one, and you have some receivers like Nico Collins who needs to be utilized in the vertical passing offense. Attack this defense for the Indianapolis Colts vertically, get them off their heels, get them on their heels, right? If you get successful attacking this team vertically early in the game, you know what that eventually start doing? Okay, well, now we can get a ball to Damien Pierce, right? Because they have to respect the pass. If they're not respecting the pass and they're loading up that box, it's going to be a hard day for Damien Pierce, Devin Singletary, C.J. Stroud, Mike Boone, your offensive line, because there's no respect there. But if they open up attacking this defense vertically and successfully, like Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars were able to do, now I know they got Calvin Ridley, who has been waiting to play football for a very long time, and Sunshine, the Golden Boy, who is a very good quarterback in the NFL. I understand that. But the proof is in the pudding. Go vertically, and then you'll be able to, Damien Pierce, we need you. Devin Singletary, we need you. And allow that offense to have a full, complete game. I think this is the perfect game for Houston to use the pass to open up the run and not the other way around. Dalton Schultz, I need for you to show up, by the way.
John, you definitely might be on to something, because when you said that, it clicked. Going back to the preseason game against the New Orleans Saints, because I'm not sure whether or not he did against the Miami Dolphins. If he did, I apologize. But we actually seen C.J. Stroud try to attack the opposing team several times downfield. Now, granted, he really didn't go anywhere, but I looked at that from a standpoint of this is going to be an offense that's going to be much more aggressive. And yes, I know I keep talking about last year, but as of right now, we have to compare it to last year because we really don't have that much film to go on. The sample size of 2023 with CJ Stroud is extremely small as of right now, but that's something that we've been wanting to see. So you might be on to something, but whether they're attacking downfield, whether they get an opportunity to establish the run or whatever the case might be, the most important thing for them to do is make sure that they get the right lineup for that offensive line.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, maybe one of the biggest keys to Cody's point with the offensive line, communication up front, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Handling, because they got Kwity Paye, they got DeForest Buckner, right? They got a linebacker that had 18 tackles. My man Zaire Franklin, right? Mm-hmm. They got some good defensive players for the Indianapolis Colts now. Don't get it twisted. The communication up front needs to be better. Who I pick up on the stunt? Who do I pick up on the blitz? Am I inside man or outside man? What am I supposed to do? That's going to be key as well, because what you don't want to let happen is your quarterback in the first 2 weeks of his NFL career, if he's gunshot. And now the moment the ball snaps, he's running for his life. We've seen that with David Carr. We've seen that with Deshaun Watson. We've seen that for pretty much every quarterback in franchise history, maybe not named Matthew Schaub, because he probably had the better offensive line. So you want to make sure that he's protected and he's able to sit back and have at least 2.5 seconds to go through his reads before releasing that ball. Don't be caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Excuse me. You definitely want to always be prepared. You got storms, shortages, the pandemic, relying on China, and supply chain issues. We need to be prepared now more than ever. Jace Medical is simple. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get a prescription life-saving medication right to your front door. You don't even got to leave out your house, guys. Everything is done in the comfort of your own home. The Jace case gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Pay more than $360 by getting the life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off when you use Locked On at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Now, one of the unsung heroes of the game versus the Baltimore Ravens, how good of a job Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins, like that D tackle unit, did to allow either the linebackers, Denzel Perryman, who had a very good game, to flow in and out of their lanes, and allowing those edges to set that contain because they were disciplined at their job. Either they contained and were able to bounce back in to make a play on the quarterback, or they're contained on that edge, allowed them to, whenever Lamar Jackson broke out, they were there because the D tackles, I thought, did a very good job. So they're going to be a part of the defensive keys to victory versus the Indianapolis Colts. But you cannot let Anthony Richardson get comfortable throwing the ball to the right side of the field. Check these numbers out. 24-37 for 223 on the day for Anthony Richardson. Over 20 of his completions were on the right side of the field. So he's a rookie that a lot of us have considered either or maybe 18 or more on the right side of the field. But he's been considered a project, a guy that's going to take time. Right? You got to be slow with Anthony Richardson. So he's going to do things that he's comfortable with. Number one, we know he's going to use his legs to either score, break out the pocket, or extend plays. But that crazy arm that he has, and he has a beautiful arm talent, that's going to go to the right side of the field. So as a defense, I'm looking at, hey, Derek Stingley, hey, Tavier, I really would love to see an opportunity to get Jimmy Ward back. Jimmy Ward and MJ Stewart, I think, would be very good for Houston. One of those guys out of Jimmy and Jalen got to play on Sunday for Houston to have an opportunity. But they got to do a very good job. Again, D-line, your front seven. Force Anthony Richardson left, get him uncomfortable. And whenever he does go right, make him pay for it. Create some turnovers. Get in his face. Denzel Perryman did a very good job. I need to see that same effort against the Indianapolis Colts. This is also a good opportunity for the speedy Christian Harris to be used on defense. His speed to get in the face of Anthony Richardson, to create pressure on Anthony Richardson. So it's going to take an effort from all three levels. Your D-line controlling the line of scrimmage, not allowing Anthony Richardson to get comfortable off the line of scrimmage, collapsing that pocket, forcing him to make errant bad throws. Your linebackers staying disciplined right, and your DBs, whenever the ball is coming your way, make a play on it, especially if it's going towards the right side of that field.
Well, I want to tell you why he was so successful on the right side of the field, because his number one favorite target within his one game, Michael Pittman Jr., plain and simple. That is a young man who finished the game with 8 targets for 97 yards. And John, that was my number one key to victory on the defensive side of the ball. You got to make sure that you make Pittman a non-factor in this game, because if you take him away, I'm wondering how the Indianapolis Colts are going to try to attack the Houston Texans. Because look, first and foremost, as we all know, Jonathan Taylor isn't going to suit up for this game. And Indy's rushing attack isn't as good as it's been over the last couple of years. And I understand that Anthony Richardson is a dual threat quarterback. I think he has the potential to develop into one of the best dual threat quarterbacks that this league has to offer in the near future. However, what did I mention on yesterday's show? He was told by Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars talked about it, and even some of his teammates talked about it. He needs to make sure that when he steps out there on the field, that he learns how to protect himself. And I do wonder, look, and I'm not covering Indy. I don't have no sources or anything like that, but I do wonder whether or not the Indianapolis Colts are going to put so much emphasis on him protecting himself to the point it kind of takes him out of his game and he won't use his legs as much against the Houston Texans. So this is going to be very interesting to see how DeMeco Ryans kind of call up this game, because if you ask me, and I understand they're two different quarterbacks, but at the same time, there are still two quarterbacks who could kill you by using their legs, and both of them has a cannon for the arm. If I'm DeMeco Ryans, yes, you got to make sure that you fix some of the tweaks that you saw after watching film, but I would say all three levels, just repeat what you did against Lamar Jackson. He's an explosive quarterback, but the one thing about him, he's a former league MVP, and he has more experience. And you saw how uncomfortable Lamar Jackson was. So if you replicate that same performance against Anthony Richardson, who this is only going to be his second game on the NFL level, you're definitely going to have a chance to make sure that you contain not only Richardson, but the Indianapolis Colts offense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the, DeMeco coming to Houston, guys, you don't understand. We had to sit there and watch for 2 years in a row.
3, because you got Anthony Weaver with his exotic offense. So you had one guy with an outdated defense, and then you had another guy in Anthony Weaver with his exotic defense.
Yeah. For at least 2 years, we had to sit there and watch the Lovie Smith defense. And before Jalen Petrie went down, man, he was making plays for Houston. And the one play that I go back to is Christian Harris coming up the middle. Lamar Jackson is facing the right side of the field, and you got Jalen Petrie coming like a bat out of hell on the left side. And so I talk about, hey, don't let Anthony Richardson get comfortable going to the right side. Well, if Jimmy Ward plays, if it's MJ Stewart, I would like to see Grayland Arnold be a part of this discussion as well. If you run that blitz again, but have the edge come off the right side to where he can't get comfortable and set before he throws the ball. And let's just say, because the Indianapolis Colts offensive line isn't the greatest, let's just say you got Christian Harris who's able to make a play because of their miscommunication or his athletic ability to just beat a block. And now you maybe have Harris coming in his face, and you have Grayland Arnold, Jimmy Ward, one of those safeties, maybe Tavier coming from the side. Now you're looking at a situation where you're getting him totally off balance, totally uncomfortable, and a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, who we want to see be good, but he's still learning, that could be a turnover. That could be a forced fumble. That could be so many different things, and that allows Houston's defense to make the game difficult for him. Lamar Jackson is an MVP, like you mentioned. He did some things that only Lamar Jackson can do, right? We talk about Anthony Richardson, Will Anderson with his one sack. I'll go back and watch the tape. He could have had 3, but he's Lamar Jackson, right? Anthony Richardson is still trying to figure out what can he do in this league. And I think DeMeco may be one of those defensive coaches who's been successful enough to make his life on Sunday pretty difficult to throw the ball. And if you limit Anthony Richardson to just his legs, ladies and gentlemen, you got a ball game. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans, and subscribe, and comment on the YouTube page as well. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.